Hello, my name is Yevgeny Rasta, and today is the 26th of November 2014. We are meeting online, as always, on Wednesdays. This is our third lesson in a row, and all our previous materials are available on the website yogaopenyoga.com, where you can find all the video materials, including this lesson that will be posted within a week. And also, most of the materials are in various forms, so you can watch the videos, you can read the text, and you can also test your knowledge by passing the test to see how good you have acquired most of the material in this lesson. Tests are quite short, but they are very, very useful. And if you need any support or there are any difficulties that you might have, please contact us on the yogaopenyoga@gmail.com. As I said, this is the third lesson in a row. And what we already managed to do, we discussed the question, what is yoga? And we also discussed about the lifestyle of ancient yogis who have given us this valuable knowledge of yoga. We will go further and we will build our knowledge on the previously studied material. There will be some topics or some definitions or some terms that I will come back to once, twice, again and again. Still, it is very preferable for you to start watching the material from the very beginning, starting from lesson 1, and also getting really familiar with the materials on the side. As you can see, the materials, the courses go step by step, and this is the most effective way for you to study the yoga. Well, let's have our memorizing principle in action, and let's repeat that the yoga is the system of self-exploration and exploring of the universe, and the system will be called yoga only if it observes the first and the second principle of yoga, because there can be very many self-exploration methods and the systems for exploring of the universe, but unless they follow the second and the first principle of yoga, they will not be regarded as yoga. And I hope you remember that the first principle is the principle of kindness, the supreme logic in our life, and it says that we should avoid at the maximum extent causing harm to any living being. And if it's not possible, we have to follow our duty or dharma. And the second principle says that we should define our goals and get rid of all things that are not bringing us to these goals. So we should refuse from anything that is wasting our energy, time, resources, and not leading on the go. So it's something like spending a life on trifles and not getting anywhere. And we wanted to continue with the topic of the yogis and yoginis of the past and learning more about them. There is quite a big material from the first lesson already available on the site, and there are extra questions that were asked during the class, and they are made in a written form. So take a look and review them. But before we go on, there is a necessity to have a closer look on the first and the second principle of yoga. Because it is good to know the goal, the methods, the means, the principles of yoga, of yogis, their need to return the holy debt or fulfill the holy duty, and that their need to have a regular practice, how they should find their partners and everything. But unless we will have a clear understanding about the first and the second principle, we will not be able to go any further. Thereby, this lesson will be absolutely devoted to these two essential principles of yoga. So, and I would suggest you to continue your practice, whatever it is at the moment. And last time we talked about the meditation. May all living beings are happy. This should be your daily practice, as well as you should have your small yoga diary to write down the comments, the thesis of the lessons, or the materials you have studied, or your personal experience. Just to have this memorizing strong in your everyday life. This is the second yoga principle, by the way. And this will help you a lot. This will help you a lot, even though you might not really feel this right away. So there were a question from our students to add some extra practical things. There will be them, but we really need to spend a little bit of time on the theory. Thereby, as I suggested, keep to your own yoga practice or practicing what you do, and try to apply these principles that we were talking, like the method of energy, the method of consciousness, in order to go further in your practice. But we get back to our topic, and it is the first and the second principle. We will start with the first principle, and it says that you should do the maximum to avoid harming any living being. And if it's not possible, you have to follow your duty. We also discussed that yoga is a very kind system. Yoga is a very logical system. And this is the principle of kindness. And to tell the truth, it's very difficult to define this term kind, or what does it mean to be good. All of us will give different definitions, and actually we have this notion inside, what does it mean to be kind and good, because most people like kind people, and they try to communicate more with this kind of people and kind of keep certain distance from the people that are not kind. But we really can't define this term, because it is not from the plane of logic. Last time we talked that there are three planes in our life, and it's illogic, logic, and supreme logic. Then the kindness comes from this supreme logic. And as we still have to work on the entire logic level, and we will be able to understand this meaning of kindness and why it's necessary only when we reach the supreme logic level. And if we would think also, why does yoga say that we should avoid harming any living being? And if it's not possible, then we should follow our duty. Because some people say, well, I could start a life, and from this moment, I'm not going to hurt anybody. Unfortunately, it's impossible. Why? Well, imagine there is a person, and this person who said, okay, I stop harming anyone. But then it turns out that our body and its immune system is killing quite a lot of living beings, maybe very small ones, but still they are living beings, just to keep our body alive. When you are in somewhere there is something under you. There is something around you that you breathe. Every step you make, you might step on a small bug or an ant, and they might die. Not talking about even smaller uh, organisms. And then they would say, okay, if I'm hurting these little beings, living beings, then I have one possibility, and it's to die. And the person, for example, sits, doesn't eat, tries to avoid breathing, and so on and so forth, and has expressed the willingness to die. Actually, it is even worse because you are making your karma worse. It will leave negative impact on your karma and your future life. The next life might be on a lower position because you have not fulfilled your duty. You are here for some reason, and unless you do it and follow your life path, um, you are only making your situation worse. Thereby, it is very fragile ice that we are sometimes working on, and that's the what we need to understand. And sometimes it seems very easy. People start with the understanding of the first and the second principle, and they say, "Oh, it's easy. I don't see any difference. Why should I repeat these two principles?" It's really suggested to memorize them by heart and repeat them as the meditation for you, so your mind would work on them more and you would have better understanding on this topic. Thereby, this is the first principle is very heart of ahimsa principle, or the principle of kindness. And as I told you, this is the supreme logic in our life. And each of us has our own duty. And for example, for a doctor, um, it is necessary to hurt somebody to help them sometimes. Some doctors, like surgeons, have to make painful manipulations um, to make some surgeries and to help their patients to feel better and after some time. But beforehand, due to their previous activities, they have come to a situation when they are not feeling very well. Thereby, even the doctors who are very, very nice sometimes have to hurt their patients in order to help them. So, as you see, there is the logic principle in it. So, if your duty is to be a doctor, or also if you're a parent, the kids grow up and you have to make some restrictions for them. Because if they will freely walk around and go on the street where there are the cars, um, then they will lose their life or be hurt in some different ways, even though the fact that you are limiting them might not be very pleasant for them at the first sight. Also, the teachers, right? When you come to school, there are certain requirements. And if you are not following these requirements and not learning, then you might get a lower grade or not receive the next proportion of your knowledge like it would be in yoga. And as you know, that only those people who accepted the first and the second principle are admitted to the more sophisticated levels of yoga. And unless they kind of let those two principles through them, especially the first one, then they really can't go deeper in yoga. So the protection is both ways. And it's like a closed circle. Because there are some people who study different philosophies and they make this kind of description, but unless they are in this philosophy or in this lifestyle of people, there is very difficult for them to understand some things that have happened before, or why did they take this rule and didn't take the other. But if they would live it during that time and in that society, that would be more clear. The same is about the second principle, the first and the second principle. When you start living by applying these principles, you start feeling the result and why it is useful for you to use them. But as you see, I haven't really given you the logical arguments why it's nice to be kind. The only thing is that other people would be willing to communicate with this kind of people. But then somebody would say, well, I know a person, or I know a person who knows a person, and his acquaintance or neighbor was the criminal. He was stealing the big amounts of money, and it's the fastest way to get big money. This person was rich, could afford anything, and even when he got in an accident, he could pay the doctors to get him back on the track. Do you agree with this story? It's wonderful to be there among such people, and all that is valuable is the money or the lifestyle they have. So we don't see the other side of how this person was feeling and how many negative things were happening in his life. Just because of his way of living and of activities. When you would come to the situation when somebody is hurting you, then you should again have a small time, because sometimes we act based on our instincts. If this is the eye for an eye principle. When we don't think, we just act. And this comes from our lives in animal bodies. And if we would just pay a small amount of time thinking over what could we do, then we would see that probably there is some possibility to make this situation more positive, more right. And sometimes life itself brings you with the people with whom your relationships have not been very positive, and different life situations, like the certain magic mechanism fix them, because you get this reverse side of the coin and you see maybe justification or proof why this person had done what was done. And this, in many ways, changes your attitude, and this is the very first thing. And also, when we talked about the meditation, may all living beings are happy, we spend the most time and try to give the maximum attention when wishing happiness to those who have not been that kind to us, or that we would regard as our enemies, or some other way that we would find that somebody has hurt us. And it is amazing how sometimes situations get fixed, and you see this reverse side. Because if you would just see that the situation that somebody is stepping on your foot or not apologizing or has punished you for not doing something that you should have, or even punishing you for somebody else bad work, you should remember that there is such a term as karma, the cause and the consequence. And it's telling that all the negativity that is happening in our life has happened just because we directly or indirectly have created such kinds of the rules in our life somewhere in the past. And if we would not have caused it, then this would never happen in our universe. Thereby, from time to time, we have to return the debts or receive the negative impacts from the actions we have done in the past. And for example, a lot of people want to make sharp changes, and they have started to ask themselves, what am I doing in this world? And really try and get deeper in the first principle of yoga. And they really want to make these very sharp turns and help all living beings, or start helping a very large proportion of people. And then, for some reason, these rapid changes bring some negative results. For example, imagine a poor country with the high level of mortality, death rate among small kids, because every yogi and a normal person have a compassion for the people, and especially kids, when they have some problems. So as they're dying from some diseases, they bring the vaccine there. And what happens? More people survive. We would say, oh, wonderful, if we would stop the story on this point, but the story goes on. And the story says that the population is growing, and those people who didn't die also become quite early parents. And as were already poor, and they haven't really learned how to take good care of their land and agriculture, how to get some food. And it means that more and more people are starving, and there are more suffering around than there was before. So if you make a move, you have to think beforehand what is going to happen. And maybe along with the vaccine, you should give them the knowledge how to work with their land, how to take care of the food, how to how to maybe control the population or the size of the family. And you have to study if their tradition is ready to accept these recommendations that might be nice but not really acceptable for them. Thereby, we really want to help, but then at the final point, there can be even more suffering, and we have to be very careful of that. Just to think rather than just do, and thinking, oh, I was such a great person, I did so well, but in the end, it turns out that they didn't need your help, that in some ways they should themselves solve the problem, or you should have given them the initial knowledge how to decrease these diseases, or how to take better care of their kids and family. Okay, this was the most of the information I was willing to tell about the first principle. And as we already talked, just a reminding, then the good way to implement the first principle of yoga is to start with the meditation. And surprisingly, your internal changes will reflect in the universe around you, and it is possible that some of the people that you were regarding as the ones that you dislike the most might become maybe not wonderful friends, but at least neutral or helpful in your future life. And this also gives you a notion that not always you have to repay bad things with bad things. And even small changes make a big change. Thereby, it's worth to think about it. If we continue with the second yoga principle, then it is the very heart of Brahmacharya principle, and it's the principle of common sense. It's an absolute logic and very well understood by the most people of our time, and at least successful people, because they define their goal, and then they refuse from everything that is taking their resources, time, require their attention, that is not leading to their goal. And they define the goal and they do the maximum in order to reach it. And it's a very good way to do. There is even the Raja Yoga, that is one of the kinds of yoga. We sometimes call it the President's Yoga or the Action Yoga, where you define the goals. You start with the smaller ones and you go on for the bigger ones. To have this notion in yourself that you can do it, you will want to do it, you are able to do it, and you do it. And these are the three steps for doing everything that you want to. Thereby, you set your goals wherever you want, either for your work, for your school, for your leisure time, for your hobbies, for yoga practice, whatever. And you go and fulfill them. And you try to not get involved in any activity that was not taking to your goal. Thereby, you will be very good by following the second principle, the working of the logic level in order to reach this supreme logic, right? And then you will have the clearer understanding of the first yoga principle. And before you want to start something new, you should check how well it complies with the first and the second principle. Does it bring to your goals? And ask as many questions as you want to. And don't be worried if some of the goals you want to reach might not be correct ones, or they could be wrong ones, because each goal you reach will give you a new understanding. It will give you a result. It will give you experience, thereby protecting you from the mistakes in the future. And this notion that you are going the right way, that you are trying to start understanding where is your path, it's not an easy work. It takes time, and somewhere between the first and the second principle, you will find it. And then you will learn how to use the maximum positive things and how to escape getting the least of the negative ones. So that's why we have to sharpen our mind. It has to be very sharp and you have to kind of get rid of all nonsense that is coming on your way. And there's a lot of it because some people are talking, saying one thing and doing completely other thing. If we are listening to the words and not making conclusions about their actions, then we might get in a serious trouble. And ask yourself constantly, am I right? Is this useful for me? Uh, but still remembering that there is the first principle that is the prior one. And sometimes being kind might not mean that you are very effective from somebody else's perspective, but all in all, this makes you more and more effective in your everyday life. As you can see, then sometimes these two principles might disagree. As I said, well, to be kind, to help somebody, you are refusing to complete some of your project task, or to do some kind work, you are refusing from the work that might be beneficial in a form of financial things, or instead of going out with your business partners that you will know that might improve your contract, you go and visit your relatives and spend some time with them as they need your help um, in some emotional way or in some practical way. Uh, and then we speak about the thing that is named Dharma. It's DHARMA. Um, and this is what the first principle is talking. This is the duty part. You either are kind or you do your duty. And your duty is very important. Actually, this Dharma is your life path. This is the road or the track you have chosen for your life, your mountain, to get on the top. And it doesn't have to be a very straight one. It can take a sharp turns, a smaller turns, but still it leads you to your goal. And actually, Dharma is between the first and the second principle. When you violate, then when you try to violate the first principle the least and fulfill the second principle to the maximum. And depending on your karma, the law of causes and consequences, there is this way between these two principles. It can be a narrow if your karma is worse, and it can be wider if you have this freedom of choice, if your karma is better, depending on your previous activities. And when you have found the best way, then you have found your Dharma. Actually, finding Dharma quickly is the great happiness, because feeling this path might not be that easy. You would say, okay, I will try to apply these two principles in my life, and finding of Dharma is not going to be difficult. Really? Because when we talked about the first principle, then we already managed to understand that it's supreme, and on our logical level, we don't yet understand it, and thereby what we do is we continue doing what we did before, and we try to analyze and feel it against the first and the second principle. Am I right? Is this useful? Am I going the right way? Thereby, if you feel your duty, this will determine your actions. Your actions will determine your code of conduct, your code of honor, you will get a certain result and an understanding regarding your life. And again, bringing you closer and closer to your goal. And when you have this understanding of the life, you again get the better understanding of the first and the second principle. And again, you get closer to Dharma. Actually, it's a closed circle. Dharma follows the first and the second principle, and the first and the second principle follows the Dharma. Thereby, there is nobody because nobody except us can really help you with finding your Dharma. This is the internal feeling, the same feeling that you have during the yoga practice. If you feel yourself comfortable in a position, if it's a harmonious way of doing the exercise, the same thing with the Dharma. Imagine there is a family, and a lot of family members are doctors. Today I'm on the doctor's topic. From generation to generation, they have passed their knowledge to the next generation. And then at one point, one of them wants to become an IT specialist. And they are kind of disappointed. From one part, for this person, when assessing the first and the second principle, they would see that there is certain disagreement because they find this profession, IT things, as interesting and effective and required. But from the other side, looking from the first principle, they might cause some suffering to their relatives who were expecting to give their knowledge to this person, or even taking into account that this probably is the last link, they would find that this knowledge would be lost. However, we have our own Dharma, and probably this person working in IT area would create something that would help medicine a lot, but being able to do that only because of this previous experience with the medicine and their family, in their kin. And some of the benefits we see only in the long term, because we are so interrelated that by pulling one string, we are pulling the others. Thereby, there is this butterfly effect when on the one side of the globe somebody winks, wings, and something like a storm happens on the other side, or one person said something to another person, and it brings a whole lot of consequences somewhere else, or even close to those people. And it is really difficult to understand these principles right away, so don't be very harsh on yourself. And also, when you are in one area of life, then there may be some changes in the future. There is a very large stress for the people finishing, graduating from the secondary school to choose their profession. If they know it for sure what they want, who they want to be, like teachers sometimes, or firemen, or policemen, or doctors, and it's good. But sometimes people choose their profession based on the salary they might get. They think, oh, what is better, to study business or to become a lawyer? Where do I get to work least, and where I get the most of the money? And even if this person finds a good school and learns well, starts working, makes the career, this might not be the right place for this person. and he or she would succeed in some other area much better. And then there are people who just stick to one profession and go for it the entire life. And then there is the other part of people who get bored very quickly. They learn something, they try to do it, and then they say, oh no, it's not for me. And again, they go for the next one, as also hoping that there will be a gold digging. And again, it turns out that they have to work there. And then they move from one place to another. Actually, there are quite a lot of those kind of people around who say that they are yogis, because yoga is quite popular now. It is a very strong system and it's very powerful because it gives some very powerful suggestions that we can apply and reach our goals, regardless the fact it's very ancient. And they are jumping from the fitness to yoga, from Reiki, some energetic systems, coaching, or other things. Um, there are wonderful people in each of these areas, astrology, for example, or whatever. And but these people who are uh, also the massage, they just jump from one place to another, stay there for 2 or 3 months, and then they are ready to go far further because they see that it's just not working. The people see that there's something fake behind them, and it takes time to find these people and to kind of clear them out. So you should find their lifestyle story and their reasons why they moved from one thing to another. They are also there's also a possibility to combine different areas, and that makes you even stronger. But if you are just jumping from one thing to another, searching for something better, then it's not working. Still, there are many people who substantially change their careers um, and move to some, or either completely change or do about two things in at the same time. And it is very, very interesting because they bring their previous experience to the new area. And that's what Dharma says. You have fulfilled your duty in one place, and then you have to make this place available for somebody else, and you go to the next stage. This might not always be easy because the career change, the place where you live, or changing the areas of your expertise might be difficult. You have to learn the area again. You have to get to know more people again. This requires a lot of energy, but it's a good practice. And this is how you fulfill your mission, fulfill your duty, where you find the place where you are the most useful at that moment. And what we have to do is we have to try to minimize the suffering caused by our actions and increase the joy from our actions. And this brings us to the closer and closer of understanding of our Dharma. And that's what we do. We continue applying the first and the second principle to have a better understanding of our Dharma and our life path. If you have a good karma, it's great. If you don't, then this might be more and more difficult. But anyway, there's dharma for any karma. Whatever was your past, there's the way you can find trying to fulfill the first principle to the maximum and violating the second principle to the minimum. And thereby you should be ready that some things in your life may change. A lot of people who start practicing yoga or learning to become yoga instructors quite quickly leave out of their life the things that are not useful for them. Whatever that is, whatever is not bringing them to their main goal. But it doesn't mean that they stop working the area they used to work. And it also does not mean that they will count everything by the means of the money. There will also be a lecture, the lesson about yoga and money, because it's a very required topic for many people, because some of the people say, well, I'm so spiritual, I don't need any money at all, I'm leaving you, and you just, I don't care if there are floods or any problems after me, I'm just leaving. Actually, it's a lot of suffering. If due to your departure, there will be some major improvements in the area, okay, but if you are just leaving to avoid tough situations that you need to solve, then it's not following the first principle of yoga. And as I was talking already, then each person has their own dharma. Of course, we can use other people's lives or advices or examples to do what we plan to do in our life, but it's simply our own decision, and we choose it ourselves. We can use the life stories of the great yoga teachers as some inspiration for our future, or a better understanding of some principles. Like when we talked about yogis of the past and those 5 main things that they had in their life. It was goal, means, the method, the return of the holy debt, and also the communication with like-minded people. Then this all is required, but it might not be sufficient for you to reach the top of the yoga. And as we all have our past, and it's completely individual, then we all have our future the same way. So our life path, maybe if somebody is going straight, we need to take a small turn and return on this path for a while. Like imagine the dharma of a young woman. At first she goes to school, then she graduates maybe from some university or gets the profession. Then she becomes a mom, forming a family, of course, hopefully. Let's keep fingers crossed. And then she again decides when she want to return to work, and if she want to return in the same place. And we just have to all the time not just keep like a train on a track or a trolley on a track. Just because there is this track, we are going this way. We have to use our life in more meaningful way, and we have to find our own way, the best one that suits us in the way we can help ourselves and how we can help other people. Thereby there is this dharma that we need. And also we should use these examples of other people's lives, but no more than that. It is an example. as one of the alternatives, one of the variants, and we have to take what's required for us and then go further. And don't be afraid to change things. And then again, you start following through if this situation, when you changed, if you're going your Dharma way, there will be more and more positive things and less negative things. You just have to analyze. That's why you have your diary, you have your mind to analyze things, you sharpen it, you see the cause and you see the consequences, and you can again you can analyze the results. As you remember, there's the first and the second principle, the Dharma. There is your duty based on the Dharma, because Dharma is the broader term than the duty, but for the us to understand at least some notion of it, we say the duty. The duty will then be the one determining our actions, our code of conduct, our behavior. Then we'll get a certain result. We will analyze this result. We'll have some understanding of our life. And again, we will come to this notion, better notion of the first and the second principle and the principle of Dharma. That is very important. Sometimes you would say, oh, this is the basics of the yoga, it's easy, just go it. Why do you repeat those things over and over? When I started my studies, I also said, okay, I know the definition, I know it by heart, let's forget about it now. Then after some time, I returned to the first lessons again, and I saw it in a different way. And it was deeper and wider, and the thing you start to understand that your understanding has improved, but there's still a lot of things you don't understand. It's about me. And that's why from time to time I return to the very basics, and always I discover something new. The same about the ancient texts. You read them, first you get the direct meaning. Then you start analyzing the context. Because out of the context, anything is out of the context. And some people just forget about it. They say, oh, I was reading this, I read this, I know it, I don't need it anymore. But if you don't apply it in your life, then what's the use of reading it or saying I know it, because you don't. And then you get this more and more, like in the ancient texts too. The direct meaning, then you read it once more, like the kids' books. You read The Little Prince, or you listen to it as a child, and when you read it as a grown-up or an adult, you see it completely differently. And then in the ancient yoga text, there is certain rhythm, there is the sound, the vibration, and you have changed, and also you understand that this text is deeper and has more to tell you. Thereby, we have to study these texts, or to study the basics again and again and again, as long as we will get to the final point. So if talking about the text, then some of the translations are very weak, and they're bad, really bad. And some people, they say that they are followers of the certain system, also of the yoga, and they take a text on the sacrifices and they start killing just because they were written about the sacrifices. But there might be a wrong translation, there might be a wrong understanding, and this text can be out of the context. Thereby, be very careful when you receive just some text out of no context. Always be careful with it and analyze it with the first and the second principle. And as we started the lesson, if the system does not correspond to the first and the second yoga principle, then it is not yoga. It cannot be named yoga at any way. And then there's also, if we return to the first principle of yoga, there is such a thing as your duty, and there is such a thing as violation of your duty. What does it mean? It means that if your duty is to be a doctor, then your duty is to help people. And your duty is to be at work in good condition and to have had a good sleep without using any toxic medication, or if they are causing the problems to your health, to your skills, then you have to ask somebody else to do your duty, do your work. Thereby, if you are a doctor, it's an easy to understand example. You have to help people, even if you have to hurt them, but you do it at the minimum possible level. If your duty as a doctor is to tell the person what they should do after the surgery, then you have to do it and not leave this person wondering, what should I do? Should I eat, or should I drink, or should I come to visit a doctor in next day, or in a week, or in a month, or should I just leave this doctor? Or being rude to your patients. However, if your patient is not observing the principles for staying healthy, for being taking care of their health, then you have to tell them that there are many patients in a line waiting for the help, but this person is wasting your time. And we have to know these limits of our, as a parent, how you help your kid to start taking care of their own security. Yes, you are putting some limits for them to feel secure, but then with the time you expand the limits as the kid is growing and is getting more clever, more intelligent, and you help this little person to sharpen their mind. And this little person also helps you to sharpen your mind. Thereby, you find these limits for yourself, and this brings you closer to your dharma. The first principle, your duty, not exceeding your duty, violating your duty. The second principle of the common sense and the dharma, and also dharma first and the second principle and the closed circle. I guess this is all I wanted to tell you today. Quite a lot of think about as I was talking around and around, because it's the closed circle, as you remember. I know our hour is finished, so the video will be posted within a week. Take a look on the previous lessons, pass the tests, and I really hope to see you here with me next week. All the information will be published on the site yogaopenyoga.com, and you can email us to yogaopenyoga@gmail.com. And we see you next week, right? Okay, bye-bye.